Cowgirl, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small-town cowgirl with Southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and Western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best. Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head-on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress, but she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the cowgirl state of mind, no matter how wild and Western life may get along the way.
When it comes to shopping, I love to shop small, and supporting business owners who are also cowgirls is even better. High Call Outfitters, located in Great Bend, Kansas, is owned and operated by my mentor and cowgirl friend, Julie Miller. Being immersed in the Western lifestyle herself, Julie has a unique understanding of cowboy and cowgirl needs, both in and out of the arena. High Call's curated collection of apparel and footwear focuses on bringing fit, function, and fashion together so you can look and feel your best. From corporate cowgirl looks that will have everyone in the office asking, "Where did you get your outfit?" to rodeo-ready attire that equips you with extra confidence as you back in the box to every occasion in between. You're sure to find something special for everyone on your list at High Call Outfitters. Visit their website at highcalloutfitters.com or stop by their beautiful brick and mortar location if you're ever traveling through Great Bend, Kansas. Remember, friend, High Call has it all. Hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I say this every time because I do. I get so excited about each of our guests because they each have something so special to share with you. Their story, the impact they're making on the Western industry, and just our cowgirl world in general. And so today's guest is no stranger to the Western way of life or the podcasting scene. She is actually the podcast host for the Freelance Remuda. She is a photographer, a writer, and the co-founder and secretary of Mare, Inc., which is a charitable organization focused on giving cowgirl entrepreneurs a leg up. And get this, when she's not tending to business and all of those other categories, she actually enjoys showing and ranch horse versatility stock shows. So I'm just thrilled to have Kate Byars on the show with us today. Kate, thank you for joining us.
I'm really excited, and I hope I live up to that wonderful introduction that you gave.
Well, thank you. It's easy when there's like this list of all these hats you're wearing, and I'm just really excited to dive in today with you because so much is happening and going on with these different things you're a part of. But before we dive into Mare, Inc., I'd love for you to share with us just kind of your cowgirl roots story.
Well, I was born and raised around Houston, Texas, for the most part. So it's not 100% cowgirl, but I have been involved with horses since I was about 4 or 5. I actually got started riding when we lived in Midland, Texas. My brother was born with some special needs, and Midland is one of the first places that had a hippotherapy equine program. And so my brother would go for mobility therapy and he would ride these horses. And I apparently was a brat and would throw a fit and want to ride the horse too. So my parents started giving me riding lessons. And I remember the barn. I rode a pony named Sunshine with a bareback riding pad. And that's how I got started in horses. But when we moved back to Sugar Land outside of Houston, and I was in elementary school, we had the incredible good fortune to be not very far from a barn called Dock Sweet Acres. And The owner was a doctor in Houston, and he had several children who were heading off to college. And when they went to college, they left behind some Appaloosas with some serious show pedigrees and serious show resumes behind them. And I leased a few Appaloosas and really got showing in the Appaloosa world. And I had an amazing trainer there. Her name was Pam Fowler Grace, and she actually had an Appaloosa that she rode in dressage, and he's a Breyer horse now. His name is Pay and Go. So my start wasn't very cowgirl, but it was definitely all about horses when I was growing up. But I remember when I went to my first branding when I was working for Western Horsemen, and that was in 2010. And that was a little bit of a different lifestyle than what I had been doing before, which was horse showing or cutting and things like that.
Oh my goodness, that is such a wonderful story. And I feel like it is very cowgirl in the sense of just knowing what you wanted, going after it with your parents' help, and then really seizing some opportunities that were there. And when you said that you got your start kind of with Appaloosas, I was like, oh, my first horse, like the step up from my pony, was an Appaloosa. So I feel you there. Love an app. So you mentioned you went to your branding 2010 with Western Horsemen. How did you get your foot in the door with Western Horsemen, and how has that helped you get to where you're at today?
I graduated Texas A&M University with an agricultural journalism degree, but I went to work for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. So I worked for the rodeo for a couple of years, and then I left and went back to pursue my master's. And when I started looking for a job, Western Horsemen had an opening, and I just applied for it. And they were wonderful. And I remember the interview. They really enjoyed the fact that I had horse experience. I didn't have a ton of photography experience, just what I had done in school. And so I think that Daryl Dodds and Ross Hecox, the publisher and the editor at the time, they kind of took a chance on me as their little assistant editor. And they really, truly kind of molded me and shaped me into the photographer I am today. You know, they both had a little bit different style and a little bit different flair, but our group of writers at the time was really supportive of each other. Jennifer Dennison and Susan Morrison and our art director, Ron Bonji, I think it was a great team there that really gave me a super positive environment to work in. Plus, we were near Quarter Horse News, and they were so plugged into the Western performance industry. It was a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I had done high school rodeo, so I knew about rodeo and could kind of find those sources for stories with Western Horsemen. And I just kind of kept building on my wish list of places to go, like South Dakota and Montana and Wyoming. And, the one of the best things about Western Horsemen was the focus was always to have the boots on the ground, and tell stories. So we would go on these 8-10 day story gathering trips and come back with like 6 or 8 stories from different places, different families that were ranching or rodeoing or raising horses. And it was an immersive experience. And so worked for them on staff, and I have continued to freelance for Western Horsemen or Morse Media publications in some way since 2012. Worked with Quarter Horse News, and I was the contract editor for Rain Cow Horse News for several years, which is produced by Morse Media, which owns, Western Horsemen and Barrel Horse News and Quarter Horse News. And so just seeing some changes in those magazines, but really have been able to keep a lot of connections in the horse industry and build super strong friendships and just kind of watch it all evolve, which has been amazing, honestly. And telling stories, I like telling other people's stories. So I might stumble a little bit when I try to do my own. I definitely prefer to tell other people's stories in words and photos. And now in today's society with social media and a little bit of video.
I can relate so much to what you just said there, because it is when you are the one on the other end sharing yours. And that's, I feel like, what made me really want to talk to you. One of the things today is because you are the one on the other end helping share these stories all the time. And I'm like, goodness, like she needs to be able to share hers today, because I know just from listening to your podcast, the Freelance Remuda, which is an incredible source, you guys, and we'll put this in the show notes, but if you are thinking about doing anything freelance related, like I cannot recommend enough. I've binge listened to this podcast because you're so thoughtful, and your guests that come on there with just real feedback and building that skill set, and I'm all about that. I really think we can't have too many skills because we need to be able to tie that all together to really serve the Western industry. So from that, Kate, I'm wondering, when did the transition happen and how did that feel when you moved into being freelancing and running your own business?
Well, I mentioned that my brother was born with some special needs. So after a few years in Fort Worth, it was a little bit far from my family, which was Houston based. So I did shift back down there. And while I have had a few other jobs, I worked for TVMDL, the diagnostic lab at Texas A&M, and everything else. I had the opportunity when I got married not to get a full-time job and to launch my freelance career full-time. And that was really, I guess, 2016. And so I really approached it like I approached when I was on a full-time staff. And one of the people that I looked to was my friend Abigail Boatwright, because she and I were in Fort Worth at the same time. She was working for the Paint Horse Association, writing and doing photography. But she went freelance before I did. So she had like this spreadsheet to track assignments and payments and things like that. And she was really instrumental. And a couple years later, she twisted my arm really hard to get me to do the podcast. And so the Freelance Remuda started because we had leaned on each other for a lot of information because there wasn't a ton out there for equine media professionals. And the premise was, to educate and assist other equine media professionals across the board so that we could raise the entire profession up to a certain level. And Abby and I both had the experience of working on staff and seeing how a magazine is put together from, start to finish. And not a lot of people understand the full process of putting a magazine together. It's so involved. And so I think that really kind of lent some weight to the advice we were given. And then we've just had an amazing slew of people that have been on our podcast talking about everything from taxes, contracts. We've had authors, we've had videographers, other photographers. We're about to have an episode that talks about AI in photography and media, which is a little scary, but also super interesting. So, just trying to bring information at no cost for other media so that media professionals, so they can continue to pursue their dreams and tell their stories.
Like I said, I binge listened, and I first heard about your podcast whenever I saw you on stage in Vegas at the NFR this year. You were up there with Mackenzie Kimbrough for the Roots Run Deep show, and you were talking about Boss Mare Inc., but then not in a creepy way, but in a resourceful way, started following you and seeing what all you guys were about. And that's when I came across the podcast. And like I said, I can't say enough good things, you guys. So much great content there. So have a pen and paper handy when you listen to that podcast. So I'd love for you to take us from the Freelance Remuda and then how you are wearing multiple hats, running that. You've got some exciting things going on there, as well as with Boss Mare Inc.
Yes. Before we hit record, I shared with you that I feel like I do more of my non-paid project work than paid work these days, which my husband shakes his head at, but he kind of smiled at the same time. Freelance Remuda has been wonderful. It's helped us connect with a lot of people, including Jennifer Dennison, who I worked with at Western Horsemen, and Chris Dickinson, who's a photographer. And so they kind of talked us into doing a content creators workshop, which we're putting together. The workshop will be later this year in March, and we're hoping to kind of do backpack journalism, which is what a lot of media professionals need these days. When someone hires you for an assignment, they want you to write and take a few pictures and put together some social media posts too. So, we're going to kind of go through the gamut there. And the connections that I made throughout my career, whether it was A&M or the Houston Rodeo or Western Horsemen, that's kind of what's connected everybody in Boss Mares Inc. So Patty Colbert is one of the co-founders, and I met Patty when I covered the Mustang makeover at Will Rogers that she was putting together way back in 2010, 2011. And so I've known Patty for that long. Also, when I went back and worked in College Station, I reconnected with Anna Morrison, who I had visited with to put together an interview with Dr. Jim Hurd when they moved from Colorado State to starting a new equine program at Texas A&M. And she and I actually lived together and became great friends. My mare bucked me off and broke my arm in her pasture, and she was the most wonderful person to help put me back together. And, you mentioned that you saw us on Mackenzie Kimbrough's show on stage. Well, Mackenzie's sister, Carissa, and I have been friends since we did Texas A&M 4-H horsemanship clinics when we were in college. So the equine industry is such an amazing web of connections. And so, the Boss Mares Inc. was launched last year now, I guess officially in March. And we were given a nonprofit charitable 501c3 designation in November, which is super exciting because similar to Freelance Remuda, the Boss Mares Inc. has a mission and a goal to give cowgirl entrepreneurs a leg up through workshops and business and continuing education grants. Anna Morrison, Patty Colbert, and I have all been in the situation where you are figuring out how to start a business or grow a business or promote a business. There are always questions about financial direction, taxes, which if people do listen to the Freelance Remuda, they'll hear me say taxes and how much I hate it so often. But, there is so much more to a company than creating a product and starting a social media page. And so Boss Mares Inc. really wants to help people with that side of their businesses because there are a lot of workshops to hone your craft, right? There's not a lot of places to find a resource that will help you with the business end of it. That was kind of a long answer. I'm so sorry.
No, that was exactly what I was wanting. And I feel like our listeners too, because that's where I feel like Boss Mares Inc. is different. So to your point, it's not just how to hone your craft, but it's teaching you, and along with the podcast, the Freelance Remuda, when you're starting, or even if you're transitioning out of one industry, maybe into another, or you're trying to get your foot in the door and build this side business that you want to be a full-time business one day. Most of us are wearing all the hats. And gosh, it made me laugh when you said that your husband just kind of wondered, so why are you doing all this and not, getting paid on this, investing this time, but then also understanding you love it or you wouldn't be doing it, like it's a passion project and you believe in it. So I appreciate you sharing all of those details because I want our listeners to understand and get excited like I am and you are and the rest of the people, because Boss Mare Inc. is different because of that. It's showing us how to do the things that you don't have to spend hours Googling it and just hoping you clicked on the right website. Like you're filtering through and sharing that type of information with us. And it's specific to our industry and what you've already done.
Yes. And, when it was launched, Anna, her first thing that she said was that she wanted to do the workshops where women were already gathered. So our mission is to support women in the Western industry. It seems very specific, but it really runs the gamut of cattle, fashion, photography, storytelling, media. If it's Western focused, that's where we want to reach those people. So we went to Art of the Cowgirl for our inaugural Lead the Herd workshop. We had 2 days of 2-hour lunch and learns, middle of the day. We provided 115 lunches a day. We had 5 speakers, including Jody Brooks one day and Mackenzie Kimbrough the second day. And we provided tax information, legal information, and marketing information as well. And so people were taking notes on their styrofoam lunch containers. They were taking notes in notebooks. They asked questions. And I think that was the greatest kind of reward, was seeing how engaged these women and these listeners were. I mean, men sat down also, but we had a lot of folks that really, I think, took away some great pointers for their business or where they want to take their business. And we also announced while we were there that we were opening our grant applications. So those are open through the end of March now on our website. And we have had wonderful response and positive support from donors. And we are really looking forward to supporting some women's dreams with these funds.
I get it. The idea of securing sponsorships can feel overwhelming. You're only one person, and this isn't your full-time gig. Having to ask someone to give you money, a product, or service in trade for promotion might run a close race to that same feeling of throwing your leg over a fresh colt. Visions of an unpredictable ride and possibly getting yard darted feel very real and oh so uncomfortable. Nowadays, I get giddy at the opportunity to talk shop about the art of selling and sponsorship opportunities. However, this hasn't always been the case. I've wished many times over the years that I had a roadmap for navigating sponsorships and the challenges that can arise when communication isn't clear for all parties involved. That's one of the main reasons why I felt compelled to create the Kickstart Guide to Securing and Retaining Sponsorships. In this guide, you're going to learn my exact framework and strategies for securing and retaining sponsorships. Think of this guide as a roadmap that will help you get to your next sponsorship destination. Much like our personal journeys in life, each individual sponsorship journey will vary, and the road trip will look different based on where we're trying to go. There's a lot of information out there today, and it can be overwhelming to know which direction to take. While Google Maps in Surrey might lead you astray, this sponsorship roadmap won't. The sales strategies I teach throughout this guide are like Rand McNally, proven, tried, and true. You can find the Kickstart Guide to Securing and Retaining Sponsorships at DakotaDawnJohnson.com. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that from the side of if somebody wants to get involved and be a donor, how they can do that, as well as who this is for, like who could sign up for this and how all that works?
Sure thing. So on our website, bossmaresinc.org, we do have, you can back the Boss Mares by supporting us through charitable funding. There's some different levels. We have a Blue Hen level and are doing 25 kind of initial full grant fund donors. And we're calling them Blue Hens because, Blue Hens are top producers. And then it kind of goes down from there. But we are focused on having folks apply for business and continuing education grants. So it's not a scholarship. We're going to go through the information provided. It's going to ask people, what do you intend, this to go towards? How is it going to help your vision for your business? We have a selection committee, and then the grants are open through the end of March. The selection committee will work through them, and then funds will be provided in June. So hopefully, if we talk again in the fall, I'll have a lot of success stories to share with you. But continuing education is something that we feel strongly about, whether you are moving into a new career. For example, if you want to become a vet tech and you're looking for money for a certification program, that's kind of continuing education that we want to support, not 4-year degree-based education in that regard, but helping people advance their skills so that they can continue to pursue their dreams.
I love this. I love what Boss Mare is all about, and just appreciate your heart and passion, Kate, for the Western industry, and just really look forward to seeing what you do next. And thank you for taking time to be on the show today and just share bits and pieces. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but I want to wrap up today's show by asking you, what does the phrase, the cowgirl state of mind, mean to you?
Oh, goodness. I think that cowgirl state of mind is simply a way to go about your life, whether it's in business or personal life, by having a little bit of grit and not giving up. You have a goal and you continue to work to reach it, whether it's kind of cowgirling up in the arena or summoning your courage to pursue a dream that you feel might be a little bit out of reach or a little bit out of your comfort zone. I definitely think cowgirl spirit is all about being a little bit independent, a little bit graceful, and definitely doggedly pursuing what gives your heart wings.
Oh, such a great answer. Such a great answer. And it's just incredible. It gives me some pep in my step, and I'm like, okay, spread those wings, cowgirl. That's what it made me think. So
I'll have to remind myself to do that too.
Right. Oh, goodness. Well, Kate, thank you again, you guys. Please be sure to share this episode, reach out to Kate, and please go listen to the Freelance Remuda podcast as well. It's going to be full of some great takeaways for you. And Kate, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I really hope we get to connect in person before the end of this year, 2024.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dakota. It has been lovely to visit with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with a cowgirl state of mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the cowgirl state of mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all go and no woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.